if I'm just looking through the lens of looking at all of these players, and you're asking me, Sean, which one of these guys would Troy Weaver want at 5? If I put on my Troy Weaver goggles, it's like a borderline Troy Weaver wet dream, man. I mean, that's like everything that you describe as a Troy Weaver guy, is it not?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to admit it,
What is going on? I want to welcome you from Half Court for today, Friday, May 20th. I am your host, Sean Murphy, alongside my guy, Jeff Iafredi, aka Jaden Ivey hater number 1.
oh
Jeff,
God,
how you doing, man?
I got to address this, Sean.
Yeah,
Okay,
let's
so
address it, man. Let's address it.
if any of you guys see a clip of on Woodward, you can go to the Twitter and look at it if you like. It's posted. I was on the Heavyweights podcast. Shout out to Woodward Heavyweights.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about Jaden Ivey. And I admit it, and I'm going to die on this hill. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to watch a lot more film to the draft. And I said this, there's a lot of guys I love, but as we get closer, it'll dwindle it down to one guy. I stated on the pod some reasons why, some things I like in Jaden Ivey, some things maybe I see, he needs to work on, whatever the case may be. And they phrased it like I don't like the pairing with Cade Cunningham. And please, everybody who's listening, you guys know how we do. I just talked about Jaden Ivey in the last video. So we love Jaden Ivey here. I think we're just picking and choosing, and we have to differentiate all these prospects, all the talents, the pluses, the minuses, whatever it is. So yes, I like Shaden Sharp, but I like Jaden Ivey as well.
Yeah, 100%. And let's talk about the fact that, first of all, Jeff, you and I, we would get any of these guys' jerseys if they came to the Detroit Pistons.
Big facts.
And we would be hyped, and we would be on the Rookie of the Year campaign for any of them.
Absolutely.
And with that, today, we got to have a conversation about a prospect that is being deemed perhaps the perfect fit for the Detroit Pistons at number 5, that being Keegan Murray out of Iowa. Now, Keegan Murray, sophomore, 21 years old. Obviously people are worried about, he's a little old being 21 years old. That's an old player now, I guess.
Yeah, he'll be 22 when the draft starts.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. So super young still, and he's still growing into his body. He literally said he was 5'10" leading up to his senior year, where he got 6'8", literally in his senior year. So a guy who's still growing into his body. Sounds a lot like a guy like Killian Hayes in that regard, but I digress. But anyway, Jeff, what do you like about Keegan Murray? And do you think that he perhaps could be the best player in this draft?
I like Keegan Murray a lot. I mean, people question his age, but people act like that's always a bad thing. Like, you're going to get a much more polished player coming into the league right away. And I think that's what Keegan Murray is. Look around the NBA, look where it's going. Look at, a typical mold we always compare things to is the Boston Celtics. Keegan Murray, guys that are 6'8", that, he plays tremendous defense. He's obviously an athlete. He plays hard. We don't question that at all. Improved his jump shot from his freshman to sophomore year, almost 40% this year from 3. He's a monster in transition. Like, there's a lot of things I can sit here and just, praise Keegan Murray for. I just have preferences. And I said it, I like Shaden Sharp. That's kind of the guy I'm on so far. I got to watch a lot more breakdowns and a lot more film to kind of see these other guys and see, is Shaden Sharp the guy or Keegan Murray? But Keegan Murray, to me, is a close second. I mean, I like what I'm getting is immediately. You're getting a guy who, you trade Jeremy Grant, whatever the case may be. Now you get another forward who could shoot. Athlete, like I was saying before. So I think there's a lot of things I like about Keegan Murray. It's just about, do you want to go the route of, unfinished product that has a lot of potential, or do you want to go, I love his mindset too. I mean, there's a quote posted. He was talking about guys that go to the NBA and they think they're, pretty much the shit. And soon they realize that without that work ethic, you just kind of die out. And I love that about Keegan, man. He's work first, and Troy loves the player first. We know that. So that's going to be big with these interviews over the next, month to determine who's the pick at 5. So I think Keegan has a lot of reasons why you'd love to pick him. It just depends. And a good question to ask is, what if Sacramento falls in love with him at 4? I think that's something we got to start thinking about as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that we assumed, first of all, about this draft was that Troy Weaver was going to be looking at length. And so I think with that, Keegan Murray is just a natural fit, first of all, with a guy who's 6'8", with an insane wingspan, who can shoot the ball, who can get it in transition, put it on the deck, defend really well, plays with a lot of motor. It was interesting, Jeff, on the Tuesday lottery stream. It was interesting when Terry commented on Keegan Murray, and one of the things that he said was that he thought that Keegan Murray was soft, which was
Well,
interesting.
that's Terry. You know
Yeah,
Terry.
yeah. Well, that's Terry. You know what I mean? It's Terry Foster. I love that man. You know what I mean? But on
Yeah.
top of that, like I never heard that before, but I was listening. James Edwards III again, shout out. He actually did an interview with Keegan Murray at media for the draft combine today, and one of the things that he said was one of the biggest misconceptions about him is his competitive drive, is his competitive spirit, and he seems like a really quiet and subdued guy, and you could just see kind of the fire, like he not that he got loud and riled, but like you could just tell it was like
He
he
cared.
was like he's like I'm the most competitive guy in between those two lines, like out of anyone. Like that's
Right.
like what he made sure to say, and it's like I could see that, and everything that he is, the way that he carries himself, the way that he is on and off the court. He's connected to Luka Garza, who was also in Detroit this past year. I know he's talked to the Pistons already as well over this past week at the combine. So there's a lot of reasons to believe that Keegan Murray would be a really good fit. My question of whether or not Keegan Murray will be a Piston is if he's going to be drafted at 4 or not, because I think that the Sacramento Kings would actually be the team to pull the trigger on either Shaedon Sharpe or Keegan Murray right before us. And that's why Jaden Ivey, to me, if you're asking me today, who's the betting odd favorite to be a Piston, it's Jaden Ivey, because of the fact that I think either Keegan Murray or Shaedon Sharpe is very much at play at number 4 overall.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think those two guys are the ones you have questions about. That's why I don't have a problem with any of these three guys. And one guy I have to have a notable mention to, and I agree with this mention, is Ben Mathurin. That's a guy who I feel like, how can you not love a guy who has the length, has all the tools defensively, can shoot, like he checks all the boxes. So Ben Mathurin's another suggestion. So there's really 4 guys that I am completely okay with them taking.
Yeah.
It's really about what flavor you like.
Yeah,
And
and to
for
be
me,
clear, the
like the
reason why
upside
we
of
haven't
Jimenez.
talked about Ben Mathurin yet, people are like, y'all are sleeping on Ben
Oh,
Mathurin.
we will.
Believe me. No,
We will.
we're going to talk about him later, but right now we're going with what the initial mock drafts are saying. We're going with the names that people in the community are talking about. And believe me, right now the names I'm hearing the most are Jaden Ivey, Shaedon Sharpe, and Keegan Murray. Don't get me wrong. I am hearing Benedict Mathurin's name. That means we'll be talking about him very soon. But
we've
Jeff,
talked about him too on this pod as well, a ton.
Yeah, 100%. He might be the next best wing behind Keegan Murray in this draft class. I do believe Keegan Murray's better. But Jeff, let's talk about the pros and the cons of taking Keegan Murray, right? I think first of all, I think the pro is this might be the most surefire you're getting a ready professional player out of this draft class. Yeah. Like you might get like the most solid starter next to Cade for sure, in my opinion. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, high floor. I think he has, out of the guys we're looking at, we have we said 4 is a good number for Ben, Keegan, Jaden, and Shaedon. He's got the highest floor in my opinion. I mean, Ben is up there too, but you're getting a player who's going to come in right away. Have obviously the maturity, return for a sophomore year. I mean, yes, you're missing out on, and people always overreact with the whole age thing. Like, yes, he's going to be 22, but if you're getting a player at 22 who's going to make an impact quicker than others, and he's already coming in much more polished, a lot of GMs would prefer that. So it's not a crazy thing to suggest Keegan Murray for. And like you're talking about the Kings at 4, so clearly teams like him.
Chris Duarte was just drafted this past year by the Indiana Pacers in the first round. Do you think the Pacers are regretting getting an older player right now?
And
no,
Pistons fans know better too. I mean, and I love Killian Hayes, but Tyrese Halliburton, that was the thing too. And look how that worked out. He's a pretty damn good player. So but anyway, about Keegan Murray, I think the negatives would have to be you're really missing out on, I guess, a higher potential upside in other guys if they're available. I mean, it's not like I wouldn't say there's for sure negatives. Yes, there's negatives within his game, but all these prospects have that. I mean, it would really just be you'd have to be absolutely sure if we're passing on Shaedon Sharpe or Jaden Ivey that we're not going to pay for it. I mean, that's a big thing. So I think it just depends. One of those guys will be available that you're going to have to decide if they do take a guard. Let's say Sacramento takes Jaden Ivey or Shaedon, whatever it is. You're going to have 2 options or 3 if you add Ben. That's going to be interesting to see how Troy kind of separates them each and makes a for sure decision. Because listen, we trust him, but I'm very curious to see what he does. No doubt about it.
Well, because he can go multiple different directions because
Yeah.
people generally say any draft starts at 5 because generally speaking you have your consensus number 4, like top 4 players, or generally speaking, especially the top 3, we know who those guys are going to be. We
Right.
know what 3 names are going there. It's just a matter of what order, who's going where. I think we can have a pretty good sense of who's going where, but then at 5 with the Pistons, it's like, okay, you don't get the top 3. Do you stay here, go for a guy like Keegan Murray, who, in my opinion, if the Pistons are looking to be competitive this year, that might be the pick. Now, I don't know if the Pistons should be making a draft pick right now based on winning this year.
Right.
Because this is about building the Pistons long term, and I don't think Troy Weaver would do that. But it is interesting though, because I do think there does need to be a second to be paused, because you do want to factor in the ceiling a little bit as well, do you not? Because Keegan Murray, his ceiling is a question mark. I mean, he could do a lot of good things. However, I would say some of his weaknesses, I think he would be great coming in with his floor, because Cade can help create a lot of his offense. It could be off the catch, easy stuff in transition. He can cut to the basket. Those are things that every scouting report has about him. However, the things that they have about his weaknesses, he can't really create his own offense in the half court.
Yep.
And that's just where it is right now. He just can't. And especially, in the NBA level, the importance of having wings that can create their own offense, that would be the risk of trading Jeremy Grant and drafting Keegan Murray as his replacement, because Jeremy at the very least has shown that he has the ability to do that if you need him to, right?
Right.
So I would say that's his biggest weakness. And if he can develop that, his ceiling gets a lot higher to me.
And I think he can, because you got to understand, a lot of guys in the NBA, you don't always have to create your own shot. A lot of times, like look at Grant Williams for the Celtics. Like, you don't always have to. He just by doing the right thing and cutting, like he does great transition, he'll get easy buckets. He's still going to get, easily double-digit figures and points. Like it's a matter of, can he create his own offense? Which if he can, which that can be coached, he's going to be a damn good player. I mean,
also
a lot of raw
point
tools.
Out prospects that were very similar to Keegan Murray that developed into pretty good playmakers and ball handlers and creators on the offensive end. Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby. What do those guys have in common, Jeff?
Pretty damn good players, and they're on the Raptors, who
and
they know how to select.
Dwayne Casey.
And Dwayne as well, yes. That connection. They love versatility, man. That's what they're looking for.
But also they can help it develop guys who might not have those skills right away. I mean, Pascal and Anunoby both were kind of raw in that area. But again, I think the reason why, if I'm just looking through the lens of looking at all of these players, and you're asking me, Sean, which one of these guys would Troy Weaver want at 5? If I put on my Troy Weaver goggles, it's like a borderline Troy Weaver wet dream, man. I mean, that's like everything that you describe as a Troy Weaver guy, is it not?
Yeah. I mean, to admit it, I like to say I see some of those, attributes that Troy's looking for in other guys as well. Like they check boxes, but Keegan seems to check every box. Like what you're saying.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah, and exactly. And guys, as we close this video, I do kind of want to say, because I know right now we're like saying, oh, we definitely have to select this guy, or guys, please, like we have to select Shaedon Sharpe. We have to select Jaden. Guys, this is a period where we need to do our homework.
Yeah, it's a
month. Because I do want I want to have these conversations more. We are definitely not done talking about Ivy, Sharpe, Murray. The scouting reports will evolve. The information and the conversations we have will only evolve because we're going to be diving in more as we keep leading up to the draft. But be very careful about saying who we need to draft right now, because Troy Weaver and the front office, everyone there needs to be thorough. We need to do the same thing, because we need to expect that of our front office as well. In my opinion, I think the best thing to do as fans is to really do your homework, because I like Shaedon Sharpe, don't get me wrong. But again, a lot of it is doctored footage created by his team in practice footages. That's not conspiracy. That's just how it works. They pick the best footage. We truly might not know who Shaden Sharp is. I know, Jeff, I know that's your guy. I know right now that's like you and I kind of both admit that like that would be like the most intriguing pick at number 5. But I think you and I also can both admit that's the guy we also might have the most question marks about.
Yep. Absolutely.
And so with that, talking about drafting a guy like Keegan Murray, even if he might not be he might not be the flashiest player to take. However, we got Cade Cunningham. And if you're asking asking what a guy like Keegan Murray could do alongside Cade, that could be game changing. It could be like Chris Middleton to Giannis. It could be like that guy that can shoot open in the perimeter. And if you could develop that, I could see Chris Middleton as a good comparison for Keegan Murray. If he can get that 3-point shot even better too, that's not an unreasonable ceiling to me.
No,
what do you think
not at all.
about that?
And I think and that's the thing. People have to understand, like, we're a month out. A lot of these things, I can make a list now that guys I'm comfortable with, but actually coming up with a decision to say the Pistons should draft this person, it's just way too early for that, in my opinion.
Yep.
I mean, there's guys that I like. I love, like you just hit on it, Shaden Sharp. We love the potential upside, but also we're not stupid. We understand that there's a lot more question marks. So again, we're not making the selection. Troy Weaver is, and whoever and anybody's watching this that isn't a Pistons fan, your GM is. So it's not up to us, but we are here to provide the analysis, our breakdowns, our opinions. And listen, Keegan Murray's another guy that I like. So I mean, we got to talk about him.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And even though his ceiling right now might not be entirely known, I mean, that's the thing. None of these guys' ceilings are truly known. So the question marks we have about his ceiling, in my opinion, we should have about on almost every guy's ceiling. And the type of skill set that he brings is very reminiscent to what a lot of guys bring in the league for the Mavericks, for the Warriors, for the Celtics. Like a lot of these teams that are left right now have guys like Keegan Murray on their roster. And so, he certainly would bring value.
Yeah, that's where the NBA is going, positionless. Just get guys that can do multiple things, and he checks a lot of those boxes off.
Yeah, exactly. The Celtics don't seem upset about having Grant Williams. I don't think we would be upset if Keegan Murray could develop and have games like that. So with that, I want to ask, what do you think about Keegan Murray? Let us know in the comment section down below. And of course, also let us know if there's any players that you want us to talk about, any guys you want us to discuss, because believe me, Jalen Duren, Benedict Mathurin, those videos will be coming. But for now, be sure to click that subscribe button because we are on the journey to 1,000 subscribers. And with that, also be sure to follow my guy, Jeff Iafrady, on Twitter at Jeff Iafrady, and also myself at the Twitter handle right under here. But with that, I want to thank you all so much for tuning in. We will catch you next time from Half Court. Be sure to subscribe.